keeping it honest. Let's hear what they thought.
I'm Martha Raddatz. It was a lively debate from the economy to abortion to Afghanistan. They had it all, and it was historic, John Carl, fiery.
Wow. Wow. That was quite a debate. And I'm Jonathan Carl here with, of course, Mary Bruce and Rachel Scott. Our reporters across the news division have been updating our live blog, looking at some of the allegations made back and forth, doing fact checks. You can find all of that on abcnews.com.
And we're going to be doing that, but not on this show. But let's listen in to see what they have.
But I would like to replay the moment at the very start of this debate, because it was quite a moment. The handshake. And if
Kamala
you look,
Harris. It's a good debate. Thank you.
I mean, quite a moment. First of all, because we hadn't seen a handshake. We hadn't seen a handshake in a long time.
And she initiated that one.
And
Yeah, she did.
not only did she initiate it, she walked over to him and sought him out, put the hands out, and also made the first words.
And probably had a plan if he hadn't put his hand out either.
Interesting. So Martha, bottom line, what did you think?
I think clearly what Kamala Harris wanted to do was be the candidate of hope, the candidate of the future. Donald Trump seemed angry within 4 minutes. I think we saw him going from very serious at the beginning, never really seemed to look at her, to just angry. I mean, really yelling at some points, trying to make his points. I don't think we heard a lot of policy and plans on either side of that, despite those questions over and over again. But what you had was that optic. You had Kamala Harris looking over, baiting him again and again and again. The microphones were muted when they weren't speaking, but many times she didn't need a microphone. You watch Donald Trump get mad and scowl through things. And, you know, John, we were all talking leading up to this about how this would go, what Donald Trump you would see. I think he had a plan for talking about what he saw as a next term, but then he was talking about rumors about people eating their neighbors' pets. So it really devolved into that.
I mean, look, Kamala Harris didn't really explain some of the big questions that were out there about why she changed her policy views on so many things. Part of the reason is Donald Trump really was not effective in bringing the debate to her. I agree with you. I think that he looked not just angry, but also rattled. And in contrast, Harris, who again, much of the world doesn't know, Harris looked like she belonged on the stage, looked like she is somebody that could serve as president.
And real quick, I just want you to know, ABC News is more or less slanted, I think, for Harris, like most of the mainstream media. I'm just putting it out there. It could be wrong, but we're going to see, because we're going to have to try to find another streaming place too. But I want to hear this because it was on ABC, or what they thought about this debate. And it's interesting what they've said so far. Trump was rattled. She looked like she should be on this stage.
And that is certainly how the campaign is feeling tonight. I can tell you, the Harris campaign feels very good. They feel they had a very strong night, that she was in command, that she did look presidential, and that she was able, they feel, to hold Donald Trump accountable for his actions. And of course, that was their goal going into this, that she would be able to put Donald Trump's record under a microscope. And they feel that the strongest example of that was that exchange on abortion, where she was able really to blame Donald Trump directly to his face. I mean, she said, what you are putting women through is unconscionable. Yes, she goaded him. She flat out trolled him many times, got him off message, but she also talked directly to voters, even inviting them to a Trump rally to underscore that central argument in her campaign that she says he's only out for himself, that she argues she's out for the American people.
Rachel?
Yeah, well, look, the Trump campaign is going to be seizing on the fact that Vice President Kamala Harris did not do a great job today really explaining her policy shifts, right? And that is what they have been seizing on. They're really trying to define her for voters when voters have a lot of questions about her policy positions. At the same time, though, almost every single thing that Vice President Kamala Harris said tonight got under Trump's skin. And that is exactly what his allies and his advisors did not want to see. I can tell you, I do not think that part of Donald Trump's debate prep was people eating dogs in Springfield or comparing rally sizes. They wanted him to stay focused on the issues, especially the ones that he has an edge on: Harris, economy and immigration.
I mean, you want to get under Donald Trump's skin, you question the people at his rallies. And that was something else. Martha, you have?
I have with us right now Governor Tim Walz, of course, the Democratic vice
Wow.
presidential candidate.
He's happy.
Welcome, Governor Walz. How are you feeling? What's your reaction to the debate tonight?
Martha, I'm feeling great because what I knew, and I think so many knew, and now many Americans know, is you saw a president for all America in Kamala Harris. You saw the confidence, you saw the vision, you saw the poise, and you saw the compassion for people, understanding she spoke about an economy that moves us forward, moves all of us forward, lets everybody be a part of it. And she continued to lay that out, whether it's reproductive freedom or how we start small businesses or making home ownership easier. And on the other side, you saw a nearly 80-year-old Donald Trump, angry, unhinged, and as you've been discussing, talking about things that are deeply concerning because they make no impact on the American public. He shouldn't be anywhere near the White House. And I have to tell you, if it weren't so dangerous, it reminds you of an old man yelling at the clouds. That was his thing. Get off my yard. That's what people like. Contrast that with the voice of Harris laying out the question for everything that matters. So I think.
And that is not mine. That audio, that's ABC News. Come on.
He laid it out clearly. Donald Trump brought nothing tonight. Anger, resentment.
Governor Walz, I do want to ask you, she did not answer questions on abortion restrictions. She never really answered that question. Can you clear that up where the Harris-Walz ticket stands on that?
Certainly, you couldn't get any different than this. The reinstitution of Roe versus Wade, what was the law of the land for 52 years. You saw this in there, and him pushing back to the states. She's exactly right. It's people like Amanda in Texas, which everybody saw on the stage in Chicago, nearly bleeding out, having sepsis twice because she can't get the care. She's been absolutely clear on this. Everything Donald Trump said, that is untrue. The clarity of this is Roe. When you have Roe, you have the protections in place where women make their own decisions with their healthcare providers, not Donald Trump.
Okay, thanks so very much for joining us, Governor Walz. John?
And we have the other side of the ticket. We have Senator J.D. Vance, Donald Trump's running mate, joining us now. Senator.
Excuse me. So now it's going to hear the other side. How did you think Trump did for you?
Vance, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it.
So I want to get to one part in the debate where you came up. Donald Trump was asked if he would veto a national abortion ban. He didn't answer the question, suggested, I guess, that he wouldn't. And then it was pointed out that you, in fact, said not that long ago that he would veto a national abortion ban. Can you explain the mix-up here?
Well, I think the president's been very clear that he doesn't want a national abortion ban. I think in some ways he finds the question a little bit ridiculous because why are we asking him about legislation that's never going to actually happen and why he would veto it or not veto it when he says very explicitly that he doesn't support a national abortion ban and he wants these policies to be made by the states. But I think there's a deeper and more important issue here.
And again, when people say, they talk about the issue, but then say, well, but you know, there's another deeper, you're getting sidetracked. Let's see if he gets back to the question.
In this debate, which is that you had Kamala Harris effectively echoing platitude after platitude after platitude. The American people.
He's not answering the question.
Can't pay their grocery bills on platitudes. They can't put their kids in a house on platitudes. And Kamala Harris had a lot to say, but very little actual substance behind it for how she's going to lower grocery prices, secure the border, and make housing more affordable in this country. She's been the vice president for 3.5 years. She can't run on a record, and she apparently can't run on much of her plans either because it's just a lot of slogans and not a whole lot of substance.
But Senator Vance, why won't he just say that he would veto the national abortion ban? And by the way, had you spoken to him about it before you were put in a position to answer that question?
Ooh, that's a good question. Did you misspeak and not talk to him about it? And then why won't Trump just answer the question? Good questions, Jonathan Carl. You're going back to the person that I like, a journalist.
No, I hadn't spoken to him about it because, again, Donald Trump thinks the question is absurd because he doesn't support a national abortion ban, and he's been explicit about it. And, John, I think that it's so preposterous for the media to...
And he always is like a junior Trump, downs the media. Sometimes he's right with them not questioning Kamala and Biden, but then sometimes he just rags the media too much.
Focus so much on an issue where Donald Trump has been crystal clear and not on the fact that people can't afford groceries and housing because of Kamala Harris's policies. This election is actually quite simple, and Kamala Harris and apparently the media would like to distract America.
I don't think they're trying to distract. Maybe they are, but they're also trying to get simple answers from both candidates.
On issues, by the way, that Donald Trump's been crystal clear about, but they're not talking nearly enough. This debate didn't talk nearly enough about the fact that Americans are struggling because they can't afford groceries, they can't afford housing, and a lot of their kids are dying of fentanyl overdoses because Kamala Harris has let the Mexican drug cartels take over the southern border. This is a disgrace,
Senator,
what's going on in our country, John, and we could do so much better if we just had better leadership. We've got the best workers, the most beautiful country, the best natural resources, but Kamala Harris's leadership
Jonathan wants to ask the question.
is squandering the great benefits of this country. It's why we've got to get back
Senator,
to Donald Trump's leadership.
Senator, by the way, I asked because he hadn't been crystal clear and he said something different than what you said. That's why I was seeking clarification. But let me ask you about this. We're just very quickly. I heard Donald Trump before this debate describe Kamala Harris as, I'll just read a few of them, a low IQ individual, somebody who doesn't have the mental capacity to be president, really dumb, unable to put two sentences together. Is that what you saw on the stage tonight?
John, what I saw was a lot of slogans. I think the American people are smart, and Kamala Harris talks to them like they're children. She repeats these ridiculous platitudes where if you actually think about what she said, you realize that it doesn't make any sense. She talks a lot about her plans, but then her plans, when you analyze the substance, don't make any sense. And more importantly, John, the American people don't get fed on plans. She has been the vice president for 3.5 years. What she can't do, refuses to do, and has no ability to do is to say,
Okay.
I accomplished lower prices because she didn't, or I accomplished lower housing prices because she didn't, or I secured the southern border because she didn't do.
And that's one thing he's right on. She didn't say what she's done and what she wants to continue to do. Whether you're Democrat or Republican, I'm just putting out the fact checks and things that neither one of them have done, from Trump to Ms. Harris.
That she has
All
failed as vice president, and the fundamental question is, do we want to give her a promotion? I think the answer has to be no, John.
All right, Senator Vance, thank you for joining us. Mary.
One thing both sides can agree on, this was a consequential night in this race. More reaction when we come back. Stay with us.
All right. You're watching Keeping It Honest. Yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander. And we're in the middle of the analysts of the debate. Jonathan Carl, who I've always liked, he's really good. And he asks questions that some people kind of feel uncomfortable about. So speaking of feeling uncomfortable, there's this lady coming up. I am not a fan of hers. Her name is Donna Brazile. And here we go. We're going to be listening to her real soon. But right now, we're back. Here's ex-Governor Christie.
About the things that he should have been talking about. This is the difference between someone who's well prepared and someone who's unprepared. Whoever did debate prep for Donald Trump should be fired. He was not good tonight at all.
He ran against Donald Trump, and he literally hates Trump. I don't know if he wants Ms. Harris, but he can't stand Trump.
And what Harris did was what she had to do, which was to prove that she belonged on that stage. She has a voice that wants to try to unite the country. And Donald Trump spent more time talking about people eating pets, people at his rallies, and whether he had more or less than he did about the economy.
Well, I mean, I don't think he talked more of that than the other issues. He did try to talk some issues, but he did talk some crazy things.
And that is a huge fail tonight. I think what we're going to see is that Kamala Harris is now being seen by a lot of voters as a potential president. That's what she needed to accomplish tonight. Trump better get to work or he's going to lose this election.
Wow, that's interesting. So how many people watched this debate and thought this debate is going to change their votes?
Characteristically blunt assessment from Governor Chris Christie. Thank you, Governor. Mary?
All right, let's go to former DNC Chair Donna Brazile. So, Donna, you have certainly studied many a debate in your career.
And she just kisses up. First, she said Biden wasn't going to lead. Then she said we'll support Biden. And now she just kisses up to Kamala. Maybe um, um, because she was a former DNC president, Miss Donna Brazile. And then she also has these jokes that just aren't funny. She'll probably do one tonight.
How does this one compare?
I think it was one of the best debate performances I've ever seen in my life. And
Told you.
I've seen a lot, and I've helped a lot of people prepare for these big moments. She met the moment. She sees the opportunity to tell the American people what she would do during her 4 years. She commanded the issues, and she did not allow the former president to bait her. Instead, she led the way forward. She turned the page, and I think this race is about to get even more interesting now.
We will see if it moves the needle, Donna. Thank you.
All right, over to the other side now. Former RNC Chair Reince Priebus. All right, Reince, the Harris campaign says they want another debate. If you were advising the Trump campaign, would you tell them to do it?
Sure, I would tell them to do it. And the reason is like I said before, Donald.
So that's interesting. She wants another debate. Bring it on. Okay. This one was interesting. And the next one, that might be the one that can, really go to that person who might be potentially president, because you don't just want one debate. This one was really good. So the next one, they'll be even more prepared. And who knows how it's going to go. Bring it on. Late breaking news. A possible second debate. Keeping it honest.
Donald Trump's numbers just don't move. I mean, the reality tonight, I know Donna's excited, but the truth is Kamala Harris didn't address the most important thing that the American people care about, which is the economy and the cost of living. She had no answers on immigration. She had no answers when she was asked about defunding the police. She had nothing to say about the families that were lost in Afghanistan, which was a true layup. She should have been fact-checked a lot more on some of the things she said in regard to this comment about a bloodbath, which was about the auto industry. So look, I think a lot of things were not said tonight that she needed to say in order to move the numbers. And I don't think Donald Trump's numbers move at all. They haven't moved at all for months.
I don't think his numbers will go down because most people already know they're going to vote for. Her numbers may go up, but I don't think his numbers will go down. I don't think his numbers will go up either, though. So if anything, it might be advantage Ms. Harris in this debate, possibly number one. And these two, Donna Brazile and Ryan Priebus, so he worked for Trump, but he also was the Republican National Committee chairman, and she was the Democratic National Committee chairman. And I've seen these two on shows, and you talk about debates, these two should have a debate.
Reince Priebus, Donna Brazile, both thank you for your time.
All right. Well, I got to say, again, what a incredible debate, consequential debate, no doubt. I don't know how many votes will actually be moved. I don't know how many persuadable voters are actually out there. But Kamala Harris had a chance here to introduce herself to the country, to people who know who she is, but don't know where she stands. Now, you could debate how much she did in terms of the specifics of where she stands, but she stood up there, and I think it was very significant to hear Chris Christie say that she acted like she seemed like she belonged.
Exactly, and Chris was clearly impressed with that. But to your point, John, what matters is what the voters think. Kamala Harris was hurling things against Donald Trump, and he's been convicted, and January 6th and everything else she could throw at him. But in the end, right now, he is tied with Kamala Harris. Does this change anything? We've all seen debates where people are very proud of what they did. Hillary Clinton thought she won that debate, many debates in 2016, and she didn't win. So you have to be very careful, and it's very important to see what the voters think.
And look, the Harris campaign certainly thinks that they were, they put him on the defensive. They are going to keep getting out and making this message. She's going to be out there in those critical battlegrounds again later this week. They're so optimistic. They want that second debate. As Rachel said, the message from the campaign tonight, Vice President Harris is ready for a second debate. They're looking for one in October. They say, is Donald Trump, ? One last goading of him.
Wow, that is something else.
That is something else. Okay. So I don't think he's going to turn down the debate because then he's going to come back and maybe be smarter. But how many people want to see a second debate? Raise your hand. Let me make sure I can see myself raise my hand. All right. I do. Keeping it simple, keeping it honest, keeping it real. Anthony Parker, ABC debate number one.
See, I did not predict that at the beginning. Facial.
Bottom line, voters out there want a change. That's what the polls say. And both of these candidates really trying to present themselves as the agent of change. We will have to see in the polls who did the most effective job of doing that tonight.
We will see. All right, that is it for us here in Philadelphia. A night to remember for sure. Our race for the White House post-debate coverage continues on ABC News Live, Disney Plus, Hulu, and anywhere else you stream live news. And your local news is
All right, there you go. Is that interesting or not? Whew, keeping it honest. Yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander. So what did we get out of that? Well, what we got out of that, she commanded the stage. She felt like she belonged. Donald Trump talked about people eating dogs and cats and animals. Donald Trump said, Biden's the worst president. You're the worst vice president. She said he's a person that would destroy democracy. She talked about 2025, the project. He said, I have nothing to do with that. Sometimes they went over the issues, sometimes they didn't. She has a website. To go to her website, read some of her policies. He didn't really say a lot of policies. He said more of what he did that was good. She kind of said what she did that was good. That was with Biden. Did she separate herself? No, she didn't. Who looked better out of this? I think probably she did. I think she did. So if they have another 2 debates, she's ready now. I'm ready too. So are you? Keeping it honest. Yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander. So now, that was ABC News. Some of their people. So of course, they're going to kind of be prejudiced against, like I said, they're more Democratic, I think, than not. But let's go to this one site. And I like this site. This guy is called PBD Broadcast. And I think they're fair and balanced. We're going to find out because I'm curious exactly what he's going to say or what they're going to say about this debate. Let's tune in.
At this point. And, she's saying that he's a disgrace and he's saying that she's destroying America. And the voters and the independents are going to basically determine what's
But it's
true.
been Trump against the world since he announced that he was going to go. And think about it. In 2020, they had a global pandemic that came from China that still has no accountability, and everybody had to vote from home. And Joe Biden did that overnight leap right now. This is what I'm worried about this election is the 20, let's say what the number, the realistic number, 20 million people, Pat. And you said the stat when we had a debate with Candace and Chris Cuomo. How many of the states, 20 million people are going to be here. How many of the states that we have that you don't have to show photo ID or any proof of citizenship? 16? 16?
Amy, 10 seconds. They're coming back.
Yeah.
10 seconds.
I mean, they talk about vibes, joy, she's a candidate of joy. The vibe I'm getting is disingenuous. And we could go through every single point that she made and find where it was disingenuous and where she just used word salad to get out of the segment, basically.
Rob.
So this is interesting. I like doing takes on other stations, on other platforms. So that's what I'm trying to do now. Here we go. I'm trying to get on other ones to see what their viewpoints are. And I think, here we go, that some people are finished, which is good. So we're going back on this site. As soon as I get to the spot I'm supposed to be getting to, which I don't know where it's at yet. So doing live. Okay, there we go. Trying to get to the end of this almost. You're watching Keeping It Honest with yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander. And we are trying to get to, let's see where we're at. The live part. Here we go. Let's see where we're at. Hope you've enjoyed the show so far. As you can see, we put a lot of work into this. Let's see what they're talking about.
God bless everybody. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Yeah, we're talking about him going off the air as soon as we get on there. Keeping It Honest, yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander. You have any questions or comments, you can email yours truly. It's parkerman2011 at gmail.com. Parkerman2011 at gmail.com. And we're trying to see if there's any other avenues out there that are doing live shows now, so we can piggyback off them. And let's see. Did you think it was going to go that long? It went 2 hours. Wow. I didn't think it was going to go that long, but it really did. Did it impress you? Did it surprise you? How did you feel about it? Are you going to literally go out there now and vote for Kamala? Or are you going to vote for Trump? What did you think was the most interesting part of this? I loved the abortion part. I thought that was really, really good. I thought it was really, really good. The immigration one, I didn't like. The voting, the race and politics, I liked. I thought that was good. The other parts that I saw, now we're going to go right here to the one show. I like this guy. He started off at CNN, and then he ended, and he has his own show. And we're going to go live right onto his show. If I can do it right, let me see. He's got a book out, Don Lemon. I've always liked him. He's interesting, to say the least. He has certain things that he says that I agree with, other things I may not. But I really like what he does. So
Who's very strong.
we're going to
I'm
piggyback.
not Joe Biden. I have to remind you of that.
Well, I mean, he's been confused for months about who he's running against. I mean, he keeps citing Joe Biden. He keeps citing Nancy Pelosi. He keeps citing Hillary Clinton. And
So I'm going to let you listen to this, watch this a little bit, and see who they are for. I think you can kind of tell. Don Lemon Show.
all of these people who he is not running against because he does not know how to run against a strong Black woman. He doesn't know how to talk to a strong Black woman. He doesn't know how to talk to America about a strong Black woman, because anything that he says is going to reinforce the racism. It's going to reinforce the misogyny. It is going to reinforce the bad traits that he needs to rid himself of to get that middle. I mean, this race is going to be won in the margin of error. And he is not talking to the margin of error. He is talking to his own base. And so, it was brilliant. And I mean, one of the things we haven't talked about was the face she was serving him during this entire debate. And it was amazing. I mean, I'm a Southerner. Obviously, I'm a Southerner. I sound like a Southerner. We have a word for that. It's called bless your heart.
Okay, I want to talk to you about that
Mm-hmm.
because not everyone agrees with you.
That's always upsetting.
Frank Luntz is.
And that's good, Don. Get both sides of the story, because this one seems like it's just padded one way. Keeping it honest.
A pollster, as you know. And he says on content, he tweeted this. Harris is winning. Visually, she is hurting herself
Absolutely
because
not.
of the faces that she was making.
And remember, Hillary Clinton, after the debate, the last one with Donald Trump, thought she had it won. Look what happened there. So let's listen in about Ms. Harris's faces.
That's according to him.
Can I
And
add on to that, Don?
What
'Cause,
about
like,
his
Please,
faces,
let's
Don?
get the women to
What
talk on this
about
one.
his faces? Because
Go ahead,
I mean, that's
Melanie.
what I'm saying, right, Mel? You know,
You know,
and he couldn't even look at her, right?
yeah,
That's the
he-
most important thing.
right.
He's so
Right.
afraid to look at her and remember that she's a strong Black woman that he kept his whole face there because he knew that he would
when
melt like he
she-
did to Rachel Scott.
I don't know if it has anything with being a strong Black woman. Maybe he just looked at her as maybe she was strong and he couldn't take it. I don't think because she was a strong Black woman. I could be wrong, though.
terrified of strong Black women, and it really showed, dude. Yeah.
And I just think she had command of that camera in a
Yes,
way
did.
that she kept talking to the person sitting in their living room.
Yeah.
And that I think would resonate. And as she laid out a positive, forward-thinking, more joy than he was frowning, you know, making all these gestures, his eyes rolling all over the place. So you could say that, yeah, she made faces, but we were making them sitting in the living room. And so
I was gonna
what did
say.
he just say? What?
Yeah.
Because people aren't stupid. And yeah, he's talking to his base, but also he's losing folks who might not have made their mind. And he's scaring the hell out of folks who have made up their mind to make sure that, oh, I was just going to take myself. Oh, I'm making sure that my niece, my nephew, my child, I'm making sure that they show up at the polls, because this man is a frightening situation for this country. And
Also-
that was some of what I was getting just sitting here watching it on my own phone. People were like, wait a minute. You know, like, yeah, she's winning, but oh my God, he's frightening.
Also
so
from
that's
Frank
important.
Luntz. Frank Luntz says, if she wants to win, Harris needs to train her face not to respond. It feeds
Oh,
into
no.
a female stereotype, and more importantly, risks offending undecided voters.
So a female stereotype. There's a white guy that wrote that, talking about females and Black females and the way that they look. That's a touchy situation right there. You know what I'm saying, Don?
I totally disagree with that. Like, wholeheartedly disagree with that. Her face was saying what America was thinking. And I think that, again,
Yeah.
it made her relatable. Like, how do you sit there with a straight face and
right.
listen to the
Foolishness.
crap he was saying and just pretend like he's not saying it? I think that that made her relatable. Like I said, I mean, my face was doing the same thing.
You know who
So
didn't
I
have
thought-
a facial reaction when this happened? Joe Biden. Okay, and we all saw how great that ended up for him. Like, if someone's sitting next to you saying crazy shit, you have to indicate some kind of response to it. And I didn't think it was over the top. I didn't think it was out of control. I thought it was, you know, it was fine. But you know, you get analysis out of Frank. I mean, it's not that it's impossible to get good analysis from him, but I would say, you know, a lot of it is struggles. You know?
One more
And so
thing I want to
tell you
play.
something else, Don. You asked Terrence about effects on that abortion question.
Yeah.
And David Plouffe tweeted out during the debate, I remember seeing this, that in the instant moment, they had a 40-point margin open up between Trump and Harris on that question. And he said it's one of the largest.
Cyber attacks on businesses are on the rise. Cyber criminals are using AI to accelerate and create even more sophisticated attacks that disrupt your email or your data. Don't let cyber attacks hold your organization hostage.
Get out of
You know,
that.
mother and father into that situation,
There you
right?
go.
And it was just so brilliantly executed. But I'm excited to see what the rest of the data says. But that's a good preliminary sign that we aren't crazy. It really was a good moment for her.
Okay, a
Well, to
couple
go
things
back-
I want to get to. This is the vice president on crime in America. Here it is.
Thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear, where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I want to know what you guys think about that. But again, we have a lot of folks watching us, so I want to make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel and that you tell everyone, because we have great conversations. We actually beat some of the news networks on reporting the breaking news about Taylor Swift. But I thought this moment.
Okay, what happened with Taylor Swift? Breaking news. Let's hear it, Don, so I can say it. What is the breaking news?
Where she called him a criminal to his face.
Wow.
I thought that was a very significant moment. Right?
Not a fan, Taylor. We thought you were.
Rachel?
All I wanted was this. I wanted what she did tonight, and I just feel like a little kid that had a really ambitious wish list for Christmas. And damn, if they didn't come downstairs and Santa delivered it all on a platter, right? I mean, it's just so great that, and the way that she did it. You know, I had faith that she would have a strong debate. You don't get to be the California Attorney General, the senator from one of the most populous state in the country, unless you're very, very good. And people underestimate that because how presidential primaries marginalize, like you have to be really well known to even get any traction in a primary. So I knew people were underestimating her capabilities, and tonight she blew my expectations, and I had pretty strong ones.
It was the prosecutor versus the felon. I mean, you saw her skill set come out. And again, I mean, it was almost like, she was making a closing argument. I mean, she was prosecuting him while explaining to the American people, this is why we can't go back. And I love that line of hers. We can't go back is my battle cry. I mean, as a woman in this country, that is something that I hold on to. And I loved that she brought that back, that we don't have to go back and do a 1-6 again. Okay,
I don't know what happened just there. We're keeping it honest. Yours truly, Anthony Parker, Alexander. And we have coming up. Sorry about the technical problem. I want to get to this one now. Here we go. We're going to go to one of my favorite people. Who I really like. I've gotten some of her guests. Yes, I'm a guest, Robin. I've gotten some of her guests for my show since I've been on. So I thank you, Megyn Kelly. She's a journalist. She was also an attorney. She keeps things, I think, fair and balanced sometimes. Let's hear what she has to say about this debate.
Very easy to look like you know what you're doing when both moderators are entirely on your side. Trump did the best he could under the circumstances, but it really was like three fighters in the ring pummeling one opponent, and Trump tried to take them all on. He did fine. He did as best as he could.
So this is the other side. She's not a fan of mainstream media. That's why she's on streaming. Let's listen in.
He was thrown a few times to the point where he was unnecessarily defensive, and he was getting angry, and so was I. Were you? This was a mistake to trust ABC News with this debate. The Republicans must learn from this mistake. The same way the Democrats never agree to do anything with moderators they don't entirely trust. This should be the last time the Republicans ever do this, because those two moderators tried to sink Donald Trump tonight. The numerous fact checks on what he said and none on what she said. None. I don't remember a single fact check of anything she said, and she lied repeatedly.
I can't wait till we start fact checking and find out who lied and who didn't. Keeping it honest. Megyn Kelly there.
She just got away with it. In the moderator's eyes, that was Donald Trump's job to fact check her. That's correct. Except you didn't employ that same tactic when it came to Trump. And you accused him of lying even when it was your opinion that he lied. When Trump tried to say that his comment that he lost 2020 by a whisker was him being sarcastic, David Muir actually injected saying, I didn't hear sarcasm. Who gives a shit what you heard?
Wow. I remember that part.
Who died and left you political analyst in chief? You're supposed to be the objective news anchor of World News Tonight. That's a comment you make to your significant other, David, not on the debates. It didn't sound like that to me. Shut up. That is inappropriate. It's not for you to make that call. Leave it up to Kamala Harris. Leave it up to people like me who will play the soundbite and let the audience decide. But you were out of line, and they did it to him over and over and over again. And the worst piece of all of this is the obvious tactic by ABC News, which was as follows. Mr. Trump, you said something incredibly controversial and terrible. Let me remind you of what it was. Do you have any regrets or thoughts on how terrible you were? Trump answers. Vice President Harris, how bad is Trump? And then she'd answer. It happened over and over again. That was the format. Mr. Trump, you're a piece of shit. Kamala Harris, isn't he a shit? Thank you. It was incredible. And then anything Trump said, fact check, fact check, fact check. And their fact checks were full of shit. I'm swearing even more than normal right now because I'm mad.
Yes,
I'm angry. I'm angry at them, at ABC, at my industry that I want nothing to do with. And I've never been happier to be outside and be able to say how I truly feel. And yes, even with some colorful words, because that's what the situation calls for. They're trying to steal this election. They're openly working to sink him. I think it was so bad, their bias against him and toward her, that it's going to backfire. I actually think the American public is going to see through this, and there's probably going to be some empathy for Trump. No fair-minded person could think anything other than that they were in the tank for him, and it was 3 against 1 on that stage tonight. Joining me to discuss it, Emily Jashinsky, DC correspondent for Unheard, and Rich Lowry, editor-in-chief of National Review. I've never seen anything like it, Rich.
So that's interesting so far. Do you think that the media was for Ms. Harris and that they were against Trump? So now we're on the other side. We saw Don, we saw ABC, now we're seeing Megyn.
I've never seen anything quite so biased at the presidential debate level.
Well, it continues a theme of this race, right? They've been completely in the tank for Kamala Harris, and the moderators on the debate stage were completely in the tank for Kamala Harris. And you knew where the night was going when we got the first fact check when Trump was talking about abortion and was talking about, he misspoke in this instance. He got it right later when he said the West Virginia governor, he meant the former Virginia governor had talked about you can have abortions after birth, right? And he didn't say in any state has abortions after birth. He just said the governor had said this, which is a correct statement. And then he's fact checked by saying, well, Mr. Trump, there's no state in America that has abortion after 9 months. Actually, there are a few instances in Minnesota. He was correct about that as well. But this is the point. The fact check was incorrect, right? And this is why debate moderators shouldn't fact check. You know, the CNN moderators did not fact check because what you think the fact is in that moment may be subjective, he may be wrong, and you're tilting the playing field. And certainly to fact check one candidate and never fact check the other. She did the Charlottesville lie, that both sides are fine people lie, no fact check. She did the bloodbath lie. He clearly didn't mean that, that the country is going to be, there are going to be riots in the street if he's not elected. It was an economic statement, no fact check. So the moderators were a disgrace. It's one of the reasons Trump seemed on defensive a lot of the night. One was he took a lot of bait from Kamala Harris that he didn't need to. The other was the horrendous moderation.
Agree. He took bait he shouldn't have taken. He was defending himself on the pandemic. He was on his heels instead of going on offense and pivoting off of the bad point for him onto something that was more offensive. That was a tactical error by him. But I do want to just spend a minute on this fact check you just mentioned. Here it is. Here's the moment we're referring to where Lindsey Davis helpfully fact checked Trump on this abortion claim.
They have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
Okay, that's not true. And maybe she can use the word kill. It's not like somebody's sticking a knife in the dead baby, in the live baby as it's dying, Emily. But you and I both know that in places like Minnesota and elsewhere, if you are trying to abort a baby in the 9th month or otherwise, and it's born instead of dying in the mother's womb, they will let that baby sit on the table and die. And Trump's claim, though Rich is right, he said at first West Virginia, later he corrected himself to Virginia. Their former governor, Ralph Northam, said this on camera, admitted to this. Here is the soundbite.
If a mother is in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother. So,
wow.
I'll give you one other. Roger Severino, he's with the Heritage Foundation, tweeting out the following. Harris, and as it turns out, Lindsey Davis is dead wrong. Some babies do survive abortions and can be saved, but are denied life-saving treatment, including under Tim Walz's watch. Harris even voted against the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act to defend, that would have defended the lives of these babies, their right to live once born. Unconscionable. Trump didn't say any of that, okay? He tried. But the nerve of this moderator to inject herself into it without any of this.
Wow.
That's for you, Emily.
Here's what I find especially infuriating about that. She editorialized with all of the sanctimony in the world to say that word, to focus in on that word, quote, execute. I don't know if she knows any of the context that you just provided, which is all completely accurate and known to people who follow the news closely, unless you're in a total bubble and aren't doing your job, which is obviously the case here. But she chose to editorialize and say, it's not true. You can't execute. You can't kill babies. I mean, actually, it depends on whether or not you consider having a baby who could be cared for, born alive, and then left without care. If you don't consider that an execution, okay. But she is injecting here to quibble editorially, and she doesn't have a leg to stand on this particular issue. There are obvious moments where Kamala Harris could have been fact-checked just as any candidate could. I don't object to them fact-checking Donald Trump. I object to them fact-checking, as Rich said, period. We didn't, after that CNN debate about Biden, talk about the moderators for a lot of reasons, namely because of Biden, but we also really saw them sink into the background of that debate. It was the opposite in this case. They were constantly injecting themselves, constant fact checks. Didn't get a fact check on IVF, Project 2025, as Abigail Schreier pointed out. Nothing on Charlottesville, even when Snopes had fact-checked what Joe Biden was saying about Charlottesville that Kamala Harris repeated. Nothing on abortion, nothing on that bloodbath comment. They just let it all go and just went straight for Trump. It was all him, none her, nothing, not one fact check on Kamala Harris.
But Emily, what you point out gets to
He-
the insanity of it. If she was going to be strictly accurate in her fact check, she would have said, well, it's not technically an execution because you're not affirmatively killing the child. Instead, after the child's born, you're just giving the child comfort care and not the medical care that might be necessary to save him or her. That's an opinion, right? That's a debate answer. But instead they do it under the guise of a fact check, which gives it this authority it doesn't deserve, that they're using that by the grace of them sitting there as moderators.
So how much of that were the moderators giving fact checks or also giving their opinions? Something to think about.
It's a total abuse of their role.
Yeah, and the same thing on Trump's attempt to claim that when he said on a podcast that he lost the 2020 election by a whisker, I said this on my show today, you guys. I said, if I were asking the questions tonight, I would ask him about that. And about the fact that he said on a podcast last week, he lost by a whisker. And you should bring that up. And that's fine to bring that up, which they did. And I was actually surprised by Trump's answer. I was being sarcastic. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know that he was being sarcastic in that answer either. I didn't detect the sarcasm myself. That's not appropriate as a fact check. David Muir, here's the moment.
Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say
sarcastically.
But
You know
those-
that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it.
All right, we'll recut that with the actual response from David Muir, which was, I didn't detect any sarcasm. That's opinion. That's opinion, Emily.
Yeah.
And it is not up to the debate moderator to be saying, I don't quite believe you. That's what he's saying. I didn't believe your answer.
And that's pretty much what he did say. She's right on that.
Who gives a flying fig what David Muir thinks of Trump's answer?
And that's why these moderators getting into the business of live fact-checking debates is a farce. And in this case, it was so obviously a farce because not once did they attempt to do the same thing to Kamala Harris. And it was interesting because in the first half of the debate, Kamala Harris came out, she seemed maybe a little nervous. Donald Trump seemed like, he thought that she would be easier to debate than she actually was. And, he took the bait a couple of times from her. She baited him into talking about his rallies when he probably shouldn't have been litigating the size of his rallies. But then as the media fact checks started piling up, and as it became clearer and clearer that the editorial line from ABC News, from the leadership that is very close to Kamala Harris, as you point out, Megyn, they said that there was an editorial firewall in this case, which was obviously not true. That bled all the way down into this debate, and that became increasingly obvious. And that's where Donald Trump picked up steam. He was, he I thought came across as a little overly defensive and angry in the first half of the debate. But as the media performance started to get more and more egregious, he actually really, really did start picking up steam. So even by their own objectives, they're too dumb. They're too dumb to actually fulfill their own their own objectives, which we all know is that they want to destroy Donald Trump, because this ends up helping him when it may not have been a good debate for him, period. Now the big conversation coming out of the Trump camp is going to be an entirely reasonable one about what a joke the media was. So the big loser here, and I mean bigger than Donald Trump in this case, is ABC News. Because now, I think all of the networks, to your point, Megyn, might be losing access to debates from Republicans going forward. They should.
Wow.
They must. And just one final point on the fact check, the so-called fact check by this Lindsay Davis. Here, it's even more egregious and annoying when she's like, okay, there's no state in this union that allows a baby to be killed after being born. Or like if you do it, with the right body language, like, it's very hard to deal with this lying liar who lies all the time, but I will handle it because I work for ABC News. And meanwhile, she's the one lying. It's just so infuriating to watch, right? You can't, if Trump agrees to another debate on ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, but maybe not CNN, because he did okay on the last one. He deserves what he gets. He deserves what he gets, because Team Kamala tonight, right now, Rich, is saying, let's have another debate. Is he up for it? She's up for it. Let's have another one. because now she's feeling good and she's been reminded that her little pets in the media will run cover for her. They're even better than her emotional support governor. She's got an emotional support team out there now in the form of Muir and Davis, and she would have the same thing if this were an NBC or a CBS debate as well. So Trump, I don't know what he'll do. Should he do another debate?
I think he should. I don't think this one went very well for him. I mean, he always seems vigorous, right, and vivid. He just has that presence that you can't fake, and that you see has naturally. And he made his points over and over again on the border, the economy, that she's been there for 3.5 years. But he was vague. He was repetitive. And I think, she was overly rehearsed. Obviously, she's extremely rehearsed, but she got her points across. And I think they're probably delighted with her performance tonight. As we said, a lot of help from the moderators. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Insta polls say that she won. I doubt it's decisive in the race, but they probably feel pretty good about what she did.
I have to tell you, I watched this seeing, yes, she scored some points. It was like watching a boxing match where you'd have to give her some technical points for landing points, articulating them. But I do not think she won the debate. I actually don't think so, because I think your average viewer at home understands it was 3 against 1 and would have a national sympathy for Donald Trump. Like,
I wonder if that's true. If the average person who saw that maybe ABC was going up against or bullying Donald Trump. How many people really saw that? I'm curious.
Nobody likes that. They don't like an unfair contest. And I also thought her ridiculous preening and facial expressions and tisking and harumphing over on screen right were a massive turnoff. And that all happened, especially in the first 20 minutes of the debate, when people are watching more than they are as the debate goes on. We actually pulled a bit of a montage of some of these faces, I think. Let's take a look. All right, so it's video. Look at her. The hand under the chin. Oh, gee, go on. Oh, do tell. Do tell. All right. It went on like this for a while.
Yeah, the Democrats haven't done very well.
The scowling. And here's the other thing, Rich. As it turns out, we'll just keep playing this, but as it turns out, she's the one who needed the mic muted. She's the one who kept trying to interrupt. She's the one who should be happy that they wound up muting it, because she was the interrupting cow, not Trump.
Yeah. So the Democrats have had some trouble with their on camera not speaking moments. With Biden, it was the mouth just hanging agape, which wasn't a good look. And this was a terrible look. She got it under control a little later, but it was just awful at the beginning. And she repeatedly tried to interrupt even though her mic wasn't on. And that led to a good Trump moment where he did the "I'm speaking, please." Does that sound familiar? Kind of needling her with.
I'm surprised nobody mentioned that too when he did say that. I thought that was going to be the high point that people would have called disrespectful for Trump, but nobody talked about that.
That line she used half a dozen times in the debate with Mike Pence.
But wait, I'm going to give you one more reason why I don't think she did well. And it was the personal insults, because I don't think American women, who they're all trying to get at home, are going to respond favorably to the repeated personal insults she hurled at him in virtually every answer. She was small and she was petty, and he didn't respond. He didn't take much bait. Maybe here or there he dropped a word, but she was like a dog with a bone in her trying to attack him personally. It was unseemly. Here's a few examples.
World leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. It is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. Why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
It went on. We could have pulled more. And I wonder, Again, on points, I don't know that Trump would win this debate, but on style, Emily, I think she was a massive turnoff.
That's interesting because
Yeah, well, on style, I'll say she won. On points, maybe I'll say Trump won. So maybe 50-50.
there were also a couple of moments where she, the race question in particular, where they asked Donald Trump why he said that she used to be Indian and now she's black, and then they turned the question to Kamala Harris, and like we saw her do in the Dana Bash interview, I thought she did a good job of not getting into the identity politics trap. I thought there were a couple of moments where she was clearly scripted in the right direction, but on the dictator one, Democrats think that is very much like a dog with a bone. And I think average Americans watch that and they're like, what are you talking about? What we want, historically, what we've seen happen successfully is for our leaders to actually cut deals and to actually engage with, talking about how you're so cool because you just ignore people who can stop wars no matter how bad they are. I just think that is a really dumb line of attack, and it's clearly one that they love and that they think is brilliant. And so I thought she looked pretty silly in that particular exchange, especially because, to your point, Megyn, she was really on that one wound up. She felt like this was a slam dunk and it was not even a layup.
On that question you mentioned in your answer about the racial identity, Trump pointing out, when did she become black? I mean, this was a thing online for some members of the black community. They've been speaking out about it, saying we're the ones who raised this. We don't think she's black. She always leaned into her Indian heritage.
That's true too. A lot of black people pretty much have said, well, why is Kamala trying to be black now? She never was before.
And Trump picked up on it. Maybe somebody fed it to him. I don't know. And that's when he made his comments. And even tonight, they're all over the internet saying we're the ones who raised it, not Donald Trump. But in any event, so they elevate this. It's already come up, right? Trump's already been asked about it at the NABJ. That's where he said it. He was followed up. He's been asked about it in interviews. She was asked about it in her sit down with CNN. And I'll tell you, as a debate moderator, you factor all that in on whether you're going to raise it on the debate stage. Has it already been responded to? Has it already been? How long has the controversy, been over? This would not have risen to the level. It would. Children are actually having their body parts chopped off right now by the Democrats. I feel like that deserved a question. I like little girls are having their faces pummeled and going into permanent brain damage because of boys playing it. Maybe they could deserve one question instead of raising this thing over and over again.
That would have been great to ask about that, the gender situation. What do both of them think of that? That would have been a great question to bring up.
But here's how they did it. Mr. Trump, you're horrid. Here's what you said. Vice President Kamala Harris, would you like to comment on how terrible he is? That was their MO. Here it is.
Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words. So
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people.
All right.
I mean, the playbook, Rich, it worked beautifully. Who couldn't look good out there with those two moderators doing that for her?
Yeah, that was a classic instance of the dynamic, challenging question to Trump, and then to Kamala. What do you think? About this terrible thing, he said. And so there was about, I don't know, I didn't have a timer on it, but it felt from the initial questions, after the initial questions on the economy, I thought Trump was quite good on that. Then we get abortion, we get January 6th, we get election denial, we get this. It felt like 45 minutes straight. It was on terrain, that was not favorable to Donald Trump. And of course, not all terrain is going to be favorable to Donald Trump, and he created some of those problems for himself. But it felt like a very long time. And as you
Well, abortion was the number 2 topic out of the 12. So it had to be early on that Donald Trump started getting a little bit off.
You say none of these things that would challenge Kamala Harris, like the thing that just emerged. Talk about something's new. You said as you pointed out, the answer about the Trump statement about her racial identity is old, but we just had the CNN getting the ACLU's scorecard or a questionnaire where she said that she supported the government paying for gender transforming surgery on illegal immigrants in detention is new. Like it broke a day or two ago, right? Did they ask her about that? No.
No, they didn't really ask her about that. That was something new. So if she's for that, wouldn't that be a question that the moderators should ask? Take out one of these. I don't know which one you could take. Well, you could take out the race one and the truth question and put those 2 in.
Not one question about that.
She also put on her website, finally, when she came out with her policy agenda, it says right there, plain as day, that she supports the Equality Act. And the Equality Act advances all of the awful mistreatment of young girls that we've just been talking about here. So she just puts this agenda out. It's a pretty obvious question. The CNN story comes out as well, and you get absolutely nothing. You get Donald Trump bringing it up, but nobody else seemed to have any interest in the story at all, despite the fact that Kamala Harris has been a champion of these very policies.
They don't care, and they don't understand the right half of the country. There weren't any questions designed to test whether she's too far left for the right half of this country, and frankly, for the left half of this country. All of the questions were trying to expose how radical he is, how bad he is. It's incredible that they ignored the CNN report, this K-file report that in which they exposed, yes, she had told the ACLU that she wanted to make taxpayers pay for gender transition surgeries for criminally convicted illegal immigrants.
And remember, I always said, we're like clip notes. So even hearing this from Megyn Kelly, check that out. See if that's true. See if what Megyn Kelly said is true.
Can you get more radical than that? That she wanted to take away funding from ICE at the border. There were so many things. Oh, that she wants to legalize all drugs. She wants to legalize all drugs, including fentanyl.
We have to check out her website, Kamala for President, Kamala. I think, I don't know which one it is, but type it in for president. We know that. And then go on that page. And we're going to do a show about her policies from her website, too.
Fentanyl and heroin. She wants to. Where was the question about that? Instead, we got 2 on the 2020 election, 1 on climate change, and ridiculous comments like the one here in number 11. Watch that 11.
Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from.
So why did he mention that to Ms. Harris if he was going to ask her a question about it?
President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was
that
fired by 81 million
Oh my
people.
God.
So let's be
Oh my
clear
God.
about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that.
So I don't have a problem with bringing up that Trump post. It's newsworthy. It's important. But the way the question is framed is, do you agree with your own campaign, Madam Vice President? And going back to the ACLU questionnaire, this perversely, it plays into their sense of superiority that you've been hitting on, because they think they're so good at their job. And so above it all, they don't know about that, or they don't bother to understand how important it is. So they let it go. and they think that shows how great they are. They don't fall for this right wing stuff. You know, they're all in good standing with the blob and only ask blob questions. But it really shows how terrible they are at their job and how they aren't to be trusted. And if Trump's going to do another debate, maybe he should insist that after they ask the question, that the moderators' mics are muted.
That's funny. There you go. Mute the moderators. Keeping it honest. Yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander. And this is the post-debate analyst. We've gone to different platforms and we give our opinion while we're looking at these other platforms. So you know we are truly fair and really balanced. I don't want to say fair and balanced, and then I sound like Fox. So fair and really balanced.
Yeah. You know what? Let's do another debate. I'll host it. I'll moderate it. I can do it by myself. I can't stand Kamala Harris, but I would be so fair.
Wow.
I would be so hard on Trump today. I said, I read a list of questions I would ask Donald Trump, and they were not easy. You at least need somebody who, no matter what their strong bias or how they're going to vote, tries to be tough on both sides. This just in.
Uh-oh.
Emily, because I guess she decided, oh, this will be fun to crap on him when he's down, when she perceives him as down. Taylor Swift just endorsed Kamala Harris.
So that's what they're talking about. Taylor Swift endorses Kamala Harris. Okay.
Taylor Swift, yeah. She posts a picture of herself with her cat. Would you look at this? You can,
of course.
Like, you can kiss your sales to the Republican audience goodbye, Taylor. Hope you enjoyed them while you had them. And this is what she posts. Like many of you, I watched the debate tonight. If you haven't already, now's a great time to do your research on the issues at hand and the stances these candidates take on the topics that matter to you most. As a voter, I make sure to watch and read everything I can about the proposed policies, etc. Recently, I was made aware that an AI of me falsely endorsing Donald Trump's presidential run was posted to its site, blah, blah, blah. And the simplest way to combat misinformation is with the truth. I will be casting my vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. I am voting for Kamala because she fights for the rights and causes I believe need a warrior to champion them. I think she's a steady-handed, gifted leader. And I believe we can accomplish so much more in this country if we are led by calm and not chaos. I was so heartened and impressed by her selection of her running mate, Tim Walz, who has been standing up for LGBTQ rights, IVF, and a woman's right to her own body for decades. Oh my God. So this woman is fine with his plan to take custody of the children from parents who don't want them to chop off their body parts and put them in Minnesota court's custody so the body parts can be chopped off and they can be sterilized outside the custody of their parents. That's what led Taylor Swift to endorse him. Can I tell you something?
Remember, Cliff Notes, check it out. Tim Walz, is that what he's for? Well, Taylor Swift is for Tim Walz, who's for Ms. Harris.
I criticized her about 6 months ago when she came out strongly in favor of, she went to a fundraiser to raise money for Hamas, supposedly Palestinians, but the group that was doing the fundraising was known to funnel the money to Hamas. And I said, people should boycott her. It was an offhanded comment. People went nuts. Some lunatic dropped a note in my personal mailbox outside my house begging me not to boycott Taylor Swift, as though I have that power. I'm allowed to criticize Taylor Swift, and I don't give a shit who gets upset. This is disgusting. If she wants to vote Harris Walz, she can do it all she wants. But to say the reason she's doing it is because of Tim Walz's stance on LGBTQ, F you, Taylor Swift, and F all of the people who want to see these children have body parts chopped off and watch them sterilized under the age of consent, and then will ride off to their multi-gazillion-dollar mansions, never to think of them again. Emily, this is unbelievable. The left is losing its mind. She signed it Taylor Swift.
Not a Taylor Swift fan anymore, I guess, Megyn. When you talk about Taylor, people get really upset. Just keeping it honest.
Childless cat lady.
Oh, how cute. Yeah, I mean, this is exactly, it's not just that she's okay with everything you just described, it's that she actually actively supports it, and yet we can't even get a damn question about things like the Radical Equality Act or the CNN Gender Transitions for Undocumented Immigrants report. We can't even get one question about it, but Taylor Swift is going to get applauded for coming out and endorsing this ticket for the reason of Tim Walz's LGBT policies and Kamala Harris's LGBT policies, which again, if you go to her website, cites very clearly that the cornerstone of it is basically the Equality Act, which is a radical piece of legislation. The vast majority of the country, the audiences of all of the glossy magazines that are now about to clap for Taylor Swift and Yas Queen her, the people that read those magazines don't like this stuff. They don't know about it because the media won't ask a freaking question about it in a debate. But Taylor Swift is also doing this, it should be noted, because Brittany Mahomes came out just a few days ago. She's been saying she supports Donald Trump. She liked the Trump post on Instagram, got a ton of heat for it. They were sitting apart from each other at the Chiefs game, and all of the speculation was bubbling up about whether they have broken their friendship over Donald Trump. Then they sat together again at the US Open, and Taylor Swift got all kinds of heat for being friends with a Trump supporter, and now she rolls out an endorsement right after the debate. That is absolutely not a coincidence. It's a calculated public relations move.
Yeah, I mean, right after the debate, what it took for this debate, Taylor, for you to say, I'm going to support her, you probably already knew it, and it might have been calculated through the media. Again, no coincidences. When you think there's conspiracies, usually there might be.
This pair, Taylor and her boyfriend, Travis Kelce, are the epitomes of elite snobs. They both have gazillions of dollars. She doesn't care what happens to these kids, just like he doesn't give a shit what happens to all the young men who take that Pfizer booster he's been pushing on them. I'm sure he's totally fucking clueless about the myocarditis taking the lives of young men in this country who didn't need the shot to begin with, never mind a booster. Where's Travis Kelce going to be? Because those are his fans. Where's he going to be when these boys wind up with heart scarring that causes heart attacks and potentially death? They will be sitting in their mansions in Rhode Island and California and New York and jetting across the world saying, let them eat cake, because they'll be bathing themselves in their own sanctimony, too obsessed with their money and their concerts and their football games to have a thought for those they've hurt.
I love Megyn, but sometimes she does get on that soapbox and she just keeps going on and on. But I do love her. But, you know, she knows that she's that person that can get on that soapbox because she has a lot of followers too. But I love the journalistic side of her.
Okay. It's just another night after a regular debate hosted by regular moderators in a regular media world. Emily and
I
Rich,
thought you started
love you guys.
hot at the. I thought you started hot at the beginning, Megyn, but really you saved it for the end.
I actually am kind of hot. I don't know. Is it menopause? I'm not sure what it is. I'm angry.
You need a cat.
You guys, yeah, I need a cat. Somebody get Strudwick in here. That's all I can handle. Thank you, guys.
All right. Well, that's part of the Megyn Kelly show. And you got the response of how she feels. Not a fan of Taylor Swift. Not a fan of Taylor Swift. So we're gonna go to this one chart. Let's see if I can find it right here. Hold on one second. So I got this text right here. I thank you. As soon as I can find it, I think I lost it. Keeping it honest, yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander. Clovis the Sir says Trump 2024. Wow. So you have your Trump supporters who loved it. You have people that didn't like it. What was your I guess impression? How did you feel about the debate? Did you like the debate? Did you think it was favoring Trump? Did you think it was favoring Harris? And Taylor Swift immediately afterwards said, I support Harris. So people say it was the best debate performance ever? Well, I don't know about that. You're watching Keeping It Honest. You're truly Anthony Parker. There's going to be hopefully another debate. Donald Trump will say yes. We've been on for some hours. We're going to finish it up soon. But I'm going to go to this last part. And we're going to see. Whoa. If I get my computer here. We're going to get to this last part with Megyn Kelly and then get ready to close it up after that.
Of it to quality that you can feel, backed by a 10-year warranty.
She has investigative journalists on her show. I have gotten some people off of her show, so I thanked her for that. And I like how she has her fact checkers. And I like that she gets passionate about her stuff. Years ago, she was a one-hit wonder. She came back. And now she's one of the most popular podcasters out there.
Your thoughts on tonight?
Well, I think, Megyn, my thoughts have lined with your thoughts. I was watching X, and I think we're seeing the same thing. We're seeing the same debate where, I was saying Disney must be so proud of themselves because they got exactly what they wanted. They wanted a pre-scripted, almost Broadway-like production, and they got it. David Muir is a fantastic broadcaster. The problem is for us is that he is a terrible moderator. You mentioned you should do another debate. I agree with that because you're proving yourself to be tough on both sides. I'm not blowing smoke up anyone's skirt or anything like that, but this was a bias. I mean, fact-checking only Trump time and time again. Kamala Harris saying, I've never said I wasn't against fracking. I've never said I'd vote against fracking.
And now as I look at it, because, we were living for the moment, they're right. They literally fact-checked her, Donald Trump, but didn't fact-check Ms. Harris.
I mean, there was no fact check. There was no clarifications. And then Megyn, when David Muir said, I don't hear sarcasm in his voice, and then turns to Kamala Harris and says, what do you think? It just gave her, it's called a fat fastball right over the middle of the plate for her just to hit it over the left field fence. And she did. I do think, Megyn, and I didn't hear what some of your other guests were saying. I think I was listening to the last panel. I think they lean left a little bit with the exception of Spicer. Sure which way he leans, but I think they lean left, both of them. I do think she did get him to take the bait. So I was watching. I didn't want him to say quiet. He told her to say quiet. That bothered me a little bit. I mentioned it.
Yeah, me too. Like I said, quiet. Out of all of that, you don't tell a female to be quiet. I'm glad you noticed that, Eric. Eric Bowling. He was a host on Fox News. I don't know what he's doing now, though.
But I also saw Trump, who instead of doing what he did with Joe Biden, which was very reserved and just picked him apart, Trump took the bait and went after her. Now, a lot of my friends who are very, very pro-Trump are saying, you know what? He did what I did because I'm mad. I'm pissed off that women, that men are playing in women's sports, that naked men in drag costumes are prancing in front of our children. And you really didn't see that in the debate, but she still represents that America, and Trump represents the common sense, wholesome, patriotic America.
Wow, that's interesting. So depending on what America feels about how things are going in society now, they may look at Ms. Harris as the anti-society maybe, and Trump as what society should and is. Something to think about, keeping it honest.
And you get mixed up in these debates and you just see who wins for the moment. I think I can't say he won. Okay. I can't say he won. On issues he won, but the issues, he was great at the beginning on the economy and he was great at the end. And then ABC Disney just gave her a whole plate, a silver platter of things she could eat and chomp on and spit out. So it was biased, but he held his own. Let's call it that.
I totally get why the Democrats say she won, and she did well for her, as I predicted. I mean, I told the audience, I'd gone back and looked at that Kamala Harris versus Mike Pence debate weeks ago, and I said she did well. You should know that she's going to do well. She's obviously good at memorizing lines, and it was.
And that's one thing she is, because if you look at her some of the rallies, she says the same thing over and over and over again. So she's good at that and able to pick and choose at the moment when to bring it out of her head, which is good.
very clear when she was just regurgitating her rehearsed bits. But I can't shake the feeling that people know when they're looking at a phony. They know that those bits were rehearsed. The overly emotional facial expressions that she was doing for the first 35 to 40 minutes made her look like off. She looked off and she looked a little emotionally unstable to me. She couldn't stop with the personal insults. If Donald Trump had said half of the nasty things to her that she said to him on that debate stage last night, we'd be hearing from all the CNN anchors about how alienating and divisive he is and how these Republican women aren't going to like that.
So who gave out the most insults, Donald Trump or Kamala Harris? I think it might have been Miss Harris.
And they're going to vote against him, but not a peep when she does it to him over and over, needling him personally. And so while, yes, she spat out her talking points and she did successfully bait him, I just think because of all those things, I cannot say she won. I'm not sure I can say Trump won either. Maybe Spicer's the closest with it's a draw, but in my conclusion is this doesn't move the needle for her.
So
appearance-wise, I think she did win. And I think it will move the needle, not necessarily for Trump. I think it'll keep him steady, but I think it'll move her up a little bit.
So Tim Hogan, the guy who just had on, said something. I actually said that on a pre-show. I was doing a pre-show on X with Mario and Nafol's up-and-coming star. I said Trump should just answer what he wants to answer. Forget answering the debate moderator's questions because it's going to be biased. He should have just taken abortion, Charlottesville, and turned it back into the economy, the border, or crime, and just stay on those three and just go. It's a tactic. So many great debaters are able to take the question, start to answer it, and then flip it into where they want to go with it. He would have done, I think, far better. Can I give you a football analogy? Football season just started. This is a game where Trump was blowing the other team out. It's the Chiefs against whoever, Baltimore last week. They're blowing.
And I think he's going to say something that I said. You're doing good, and the quarterback you're doing, he kind of sucks. But then they take him out, and you bring in a new quarterback to go against you, who's the better quarterback. And now you really don't have a feel for this new guy. And you may end up in a tie where you could have crushed that guy in the game if it was the original guy. So let's see if Eric's going to talk about it like that.
Blowing him out. He's killing him. They switched the quarterback, right? She comes in and throws a couple of touchdown passes. Now, she hasn't been a quarterback. She's just been a backbencher, but she gets lucky, throws some touchdowns, and everyone says, holy cow, Baltimore's going to beat the Chiefs. That's what.
And I've talked about this before, too. She's like a new quarterback.
Supposed to happen until the reality sets in. She doesn't know the playbook. You still have the rest of the game to finish. And here's where we are. We're halfway through the fourth quarter. It's probably tie score. Let's be honest. It's probably a tie score. But you never bet against Patrick Mahomes in the fourth quarter when you got the ball and it's a tie score. He will come on strong at the end. The problem is it took too long for them to get there with her. I think they played this game of let's let her get through the DNC convention and then we'll really go after her. I thought he should have just started just banging her on all the economy and inflation. When you back her into a corner on anything numbers, she has nowhere to go. She has no DNA, nothing up here to rely. Think back on high school algebra, anything. It becomes a vacant stare. Almost when Lester Holt said, "You haven't been to the border," and she's, "Well, I haven't been to Europe either." Ha ha ha. That's where she is on policy, but they just handed her so many get out of jail free cards.
So I like that football analogy too, because we've talked about that before. So she's like the quarterback that comes in. He's been winning against his team. They take out that quarterback that he's been beating, bringing in this new one, and now it's tied probably in the fourth quarter, and it's up to Trump to say, okay, let me get my head together and do what I do. Because so far, this is the first debate that technically he's lost, if he's lost it to some people.
That's right. And he played defense the whole time. And here's another disgusting aggravation. You know, this little nerdy dweeby little man over on CNN named Daniel Dale, who does fact checks supposedly against both sides. He's super fair, Eric. Well, this guy decides to tell us how the falsehoods shook out between these two candidates. And here is his conclusion.
Jake, what stood out was that this was a staggeringly dishonest debate performance from former President Trump. Just lie after lie on subject after subject. By my preliminary count, Jake, Trump made at least 33 false claims, 33. By contrast, by, again, a preliminary count, Vice President Harris made at least one false claim, though she added at least a few misleading claims and a few more that lack key.
I don't believe that. I don't believe she only made one false claim. I can't wait till the fact checking really comes out.
Context. I think a lot of Americans say, well, all politicians lie. No major presidential candidate before Donald Trump has ever lied with this kind of frequency. A remarkably large chunk of what he said tonight was just not true. And this wasn't like little exaggeration, political spin. A lot of his false claims were untethered to reality. On abortion, saying every Democrat wanted Roe v. Wade overturned, though actually more than 80% of Democrats supported Roe. On crime, saying it's through the roof, though it's actually sharply down since early 2023. It's now lower than it was since Trump left office. On healthcare, saying he's the one who saved Obamacare, the law he actually repeatedly tried to overturn. On Kamala Harris herself, saying that a Howard University grad, Black Law Students Association president, had claimed that she wasn't Black at one point. Frankly, I don't have enough time here to run through each specific Trump false claim. I urge people to go to our CNN website or our app to read our team's detailed fact checks on this and a whole bunch more.
Wow.
Wow. Wow. I
Just
don't even want
one.
to start with that.
Just
one. So
Just one from Kamala Harris. And I believe it's the fracking lie where she claimed that she had said she wasn't going to ban fracking, which she never said. She only said Joe Biden wouldn't ban fracking.
Right.
She never reversed her plan and stated belief that it should be banned. And by the way, where was his fact check? Even Snopes has fact checked the find people on both sides lie and the bloodbath lie, her claims about abortion, her claims about Trump and IVF, the Trump abortion ban line. She kept saying Trump's abortion bans. Trump has no abortion bans. Trump appointed 3 justices to the U.S. Supreme Court who overruled Roe and said this is a states' rights issue. There's no Trump abortion ban. Fucking Daniel Dale doesn't care about any of her falsehoods, the same as Lindsey Davis and David Muir.
She's pretty hot tonight as far as boiling as far as this debate's concerned. Wow, Megyn.
It's shocking that he could say, he did, though. He covered himself. He said at least one for Kamala Harris, which means it could have been 50. He didn't lie about that. I'm joking here. But one of the 2 areas where I think Trump really could have nailed her. When Afghanistan came up the second time, David Muir said, I know we talked about it before, but Afghanistan, how do where do you stand on the pullout? And she said, I continue to believe Joe Biden made the right decision. It was a horror. It was one of the worst military decisions the world has ever seen, let alone America. And I think Trump could have kept on her a little bit. I know he did a little bit, but there was an opportunity there that I think was wasted. And also,
and I also think that the moderator could have questioned her more a bit about Afghanistan and those people as they were departing, hanging on the airplane, trying to get out with people, and the whole world saw that.
And the topic of Hamas and Israel came up. He really could have pounded. He could have driven the wedge through the 2 sides of Kamala Harris's mouth, the side that is trying to maintain the Jewish vote and the other side that's trying to maintain the state of Minnesota.
Because I thought that would have been the one that would have been a turning point for voters, the Hamas war and how she responded to that.
Michigan vote with the Muslim population there. They're on both sides. They've been flip-flopping across the board on this. And I didn't think he brought it home on that. I hope there is another debate. I hope the debate is some neutral zone.
How?
Digital.
Right. I'm saying Fox, but then maybe, it might be on a streaming service. But who would that streaming service be? I don't know.
Digital. I mean, it's the only place to go right now. Let's be honest, Megyn. You and I come from the cable news world. Disney owns ABC. ABC owns the moderators. There's no question that the Disney board is wildly liberal. They want a Kamala Harris president. If you think that these people who make millions upon millions of dollars from talent all the way up to management aren't trying to protect their own ass and their own paycheck, you're out of your mind. They're going to do it. On the other side, let's be honest, Fox has a conservative board, maybe less conservative than it used to be, but it's still a conservative board with the exception of Paul Ryan. But they still lean in the other direction. Get out of that world. Get out of the world where you're beholden to corporate boardrooms and advertisers, and go to some neutral zone. Go to a digital space, Megyn Kelly, and
I'll tell
and
you.
pick another one. And Tucker, I don't know.
I'll
just
tell you
pick up-
exactly. No. No.
I wouldn't say Tucker because Tucker's a fan of Trump. I would say the guy PVD, the one that we were on his side and trying to see what their story's about. He kind of keeps it real. He does moderations. He moderates shows. To me, I think he'd be one of the best ones. Well, Megyn too, but Megyn says she doesn't like Ms. Harris. But I think this guy PBD, his podcast would be a great avenue to do a debate. You heard it here first.
You know what? No one else. And this is not about a vanity project for me. I've hosted plenty of debates. But this is why it should just be me. It should be me alone, because who in the country has been harder on Donald Trump in presidential debates
No one.
in a fair way, not like
No
these
one.
moderators tonight, than me. I have proven that I will not give him a pass in
Meg,
debates
can I be
and
honest
in
with you?
interviews. And there's
I
zero
told
chance
this-
I will give her a pass.
She is selling herself. So maybe Megyn Kelly, but then Trump would say, well, I've known Megyn. She's going to be fair, at least. That'd be interesting.
I told this story on a show I was on prior to the debate. I said, I'm going out with Megyn Kelly later. And I said, Megyn Kelly should be the host, should be a moderator of these debates. Because who can forget in that famous moment where you were tough on Trump? Let's be honest, you were tough on him, but you weren't unfairly
Yes.
tough on him. And I can't imagine, you don't have to tell us, but I can't imagine the amount of input that you were getting from above and laterally and above from management and board members and whatnot to push you in a direction. And you did what your heart told you to do. You were a journalist and you did what you were on this earth, put on this earth to do. And look, and it's been nothing but good. Again, I'm not trying to kiss your butt or whatever, but that's what we need. And we haven't had that. I will give Jake Tapper and Dana Bash credit for coming close to
They
that.
did
I think
fine.
they were.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they did
they were
fine.
as
They
close
also
to
brought up
fair
climate
as
change,
I've
but
seen.
not the cutting up of body parts and children.
But I didn't like Dana Bash when she did the interview with Ms. Harris, though.
But they did fine. I mean, I would take that debate 10 times over what we just witnessed tonight. What does Trump do next? Because I don't think there's no other obvious debate. The only other one that he proposed was Fox, and she said no to it. And I noticed that in her, okay, I'll do another debate, she's not saying I'll go on Fox.
And then who would interview her on Fox? That would be interesting. Because Fox, we know, still has been a Trump kind of supporter.
Because she knows what will happen when it's going. Fox would be neutral. They actually would not go easy on Donald Trump and hard on Kamala Harris, I don't think. But she's not going to do it. So what does Trump do now?
I think he agrees to another debate on a more neutral playing ground. Did you notice that this whole idea of muting the microphones only worked one way? Did you know? I mean, they never muted her microphone. They were muting Trump left and right. They let him speak if he wanted to, but she was never muted.
That part is true too. If you watch the debate, she wasn't really muted.
I heard her muted. I heard her muted a couple times. And she was a chatty Cathy. She wouldn't shut up. She couldn't control herself over there. She was very unsteady in the first half hour, and then it started to go downhill because the moderators shifted it. Whenever she was on the ropes, they would inject themselves and they would shift it. Oh, here's a little question on abortion for you. That'll make you happy. And you could see her with her dry mouth and her obvious nerves calm down once they brought her to the promised land.
And race. Now, if you poll America, what are the most important things to you right now? Cost of goods, fuel prices, inflation, crime, sending my daughter to school, hoping she doesn't get raped by an illegal immigrant on the way, or get a volleyball smashed in her face by a man who wants to be a woman. Those are the things that Americans care about. They don't care that Donald Trump once said, I don't know if she's black or not, because sometimes she says she is, sometimes she says she is not. That topic came up a little bit after abortion, and maybe they mixed in Charlottesville in the middle of that. So, they started out with the economy, and maybe that was a bait and switch, like, look over here, here's the shiny object, and they just went in for probably a full hour right into Kamala Harris's sweet zone. Just served it up to her on a silver platter.
Yes, it was all of her favorite little lovelies rubbing all over her. January 6th, election denialism, climate change, abortion. Yes, bring it on. That's really what we witnessed. Eric, stand by. I've got to say goodbye to the SiriusXM audience because we are going to wrap at midnight sharp. I want to keep you for a couple minutes thereafter, if you don't mind, because I just have a couple points I want to make. We just got this soundbite in from Nicole Wallace. The media problem must be addressed in just a little bit more detail, so don't go away, okay? Can you stand by?
Sure.
Thank you, my friends, SiriusXM listeners. Thank you very
So we're going to go back to Megyn Kelly and the people that she's interviewing. We're almost finished. But I love getting these sides of the story. You're watching Keep It Honest. Yours truly, Anthony Parker.
So the media, I'm genuinely distressed by it. Like, I genuinely feel like we've crossed a Rubicon here that cannot be uncrossed. The willingness to actually jump into the tank and swim and paddle for her tonight was absolutely egregious. And to me, it was shocking, even from an industry that we know is biased towards the left. Here was Nicole Wallace over on MSNBC. Listen to the soundbite, appearing to admit that it was 3-on-1. And this is a person who loathes Trump with the passion of 10,000 suns. Watch.
David Muir didn't hesitate to say, I went back and watched the tape. You didn't sound sarcastic to me when you said I lost by a whisker. Kamala Harris got Trump on three sides of whether or not he won in 2020.
Oh, yeah. And MSNBC, they really can't stand Trump. Okay. So let's see how she delivers this.
He said I won. And then he said, I said sarcastically that I lost by a whisker. And then David Muir ended it by saying, no, that wasn't sarcastic. So what the American people heard was Trump on three sides of the outcome of 2020. And David Muir and Lindsey Davis played an important role in that.
There it is. They certainly did. What an admission.
That was one topic, one comment. That sarcasm, that I didn't hear sarcasm throwing to Kamala Harris was, like I mentioned earlier, it was like one of the most egregious things I've seen, right up there with your old friend Chris Wallace fact-checking Trump erroneously in one of the debates, saying that the Hunter laptop was a Russian misinformation campaign, and we now know it wasn't, but he stopped the debate in its tracks.
He shut it down.
He shut down Trump, and he was.
I do remember that. I used to like Chris Wallace, but yeah, moderators can do certain things that moderators shouldn't be doing. They just ask the questions and the follow-up questions. Don't give any opinions.
Wrong. And the same thing happened with David Muir on what you pointed out earlier on the animals being tortured or eaten in Springfield, Ohio, and other places. Really, it's not just that one place.
Can I just show you? Let me just show you the sound bites on Springfield. Let's just show this. They made it sound like Trump is just some lunatic making this stuff up out of whole cloth. Here's what we've been seeing over the past couple of days.
So this part is with the animals and the people eating animals. That was kind of crazy. But is she saying that Trump believed it?
It's from Springfield.
And it's nothing but immigrants over there. And I don't even want to seem like I'm coming down on the immigrants, because it's the people that's bringing them down here. Because wherever they're at, that's what they're used to, bro. They're in the park grabbing up ducks by their neck and cutting their head off and walking off with them and eating them.
Okay, I never saw that. So that's interesting. If that's true and Trump was saying that, then it's true.
Okay. And now, and on top of that, Springfield, Ohio Facebook post, warning to all about our beloved pets and those around us. My neighbor informed me her daughter's friend had lost her cat. She checked pages, kennels, and asked around, etc. One day she came home from work. As soon as she stepped out from her car, looked toward a neighbor's house where Haitians live, and saw her cat hanging from a branch like you would do to a deer for butchering, and they were carving it up to eat. I've been told they are doing this. They have been doing it at Snyder Park with the ducks and geese, as I was told that last bit by rangers and police. Please keep a close eye on these animals. You heard that guy. And now, do we have the Federalist report? Because they're out there with a report and the 911 call on All right, we don't have the SOT. We can lay it in later, perhaps. But the Federalist has a report about as follows: recording of a police phone call obtained by the Federalist revealing a local resident reporting a group of Haitian migrants carrying 4 geese in Springfield, Ohio on August 26th. Quote, I see a group of Haitian people. There was about 4 of them. They all had geese in their hands, the caller tells the public services dispatcher. The caller told the dispatcher he saw 4 migrants in total, 2 men and 2 women, each carrying a single goose. How many geese did they have? Asked the dispatcher. They each had 1. The caller says he spotted the Haitians carrying the geese at an intersection between Water and Warder Street, location that does exist in Springfield and is confirmed in the police report later filed in the incident. This is all we have on the other side is this officer, a deputy director of public safety, Jason Villa, who told NPR, I think it's sad some people are using this as an opportunity to spread hate or spread fear. We get these reports that the Haitians are killing ducks in a lot of our parks, or the Haitians are eating vegetables right out of the aisle at the grocery store.
Wow.
And we haven't really seen any of that. It's really frustrating as a community. It's not helpful as we try to move forward. We haven't really seen any of that. So what? You haven't really seen any of that? What are you talking about? Because all you mentioned here was reports that they were killing ducks in a lot of your parks and that they're eating vegetables. You did not address the cat claim. You did not address the Federalist reporting that they had 4 of them and that it was called into 911. And you did not address the claim that at least in one case, a duck was beheaded. You only speak to that it's, hold on, how does he put it? A lot of our parks. So this is what you could call a non-denial denial. And that's what David Muir thought was an appropriate fact check tonight.
Wow. So that's interesting. If that's true, that's crazy.
Not just once. He said it 2 or 3 times when Trump said, well, we'll see if that comes out differently later. It's like, no, I'm talking about this person, the one guy that you just mentioned. Meanwhile, there are reports and reports. It's all over the internet. I will give you an anecdotal story. And this is an absolute true story. I used to play professional baseball in the minor leagues. There were a lot of Dominican players who were drafted. They were young guys. They never went to college. We housed with them. We roomed with them in Bradenton, Florida for the Pirates. And they would kill cats and eat them. Honest to God, true story. It happens. It's the way of life in some countries. It just it's an accepted behavior. It's not here and it's not okay. But for someone to say all these reports and those there's 2 or 3 people who were at a town hall meeting talking about some of the things that were going on, that they're somehow not telling you the truth or they're lying, that's ridiculous. And even further, more ridiculous is you have a presidential campaign that's very tight, very close. You have likely a single presidential election debate, and one of the moderators uses a shoddy fact check like that. Honestly, Megyn, that feels like someone came down from above, management, ABC or Disney, and said, if he brings up these cats, because it's bad, because it's everywhere. It's just got the country kind of freaked out that these people are what they're doing. They probably said, make sure you stop him in his tracks, because he went back 2 or 3. If you listen back to the tape, he stopped Trump 2 or 3 times on the same topic, that's highly unusual. It's very unusual.
So that's interesting. So if you know anything about those stories with the cats and people eating cats, get in contact with me and let me know.
Unusual.
We have some of this queued up. Let's take a listen to SOT 8.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets.
So we thought Trump was kind of crazy when he was saying that, but if you looked at the Megyn Kelly footage a couple minutes ago, it appears he's not.
Of the people that live there. And
She's
this is what's happening in our country.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
the people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
The people are on television saying their dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme.
She's laughing.
4. Four times.
4 times.
4 times David Muir jumped in. ABC News said, I just want to say, I'm not talking about TV, I'm talking about the city manager. 4 separate times he stopped Trump in his correction, clarification, fact check, whatever you call it, and then throws it to Kamala Harris. Doesn't even let Trump get the rest of the thought out, and then throws it to Kamala Harris. That's probably, I would say that's probably the most biased interaction of the whole hour and 40-minute debate.
Because what we have at this point is a he said, he said. He gave more credibility to the city manager than he did to the woman who just posted on Facebook, than the person who called 911 as reported by the Federalist, than the people we just showed you who testified at the city meeting. David Muir decided that he would be the arbiter of truth and that he believed the city manager more than he believed those individuals. What did you do, David Muir, to make sure the city manager is a truth teller? Because his little denial sounds like somebody who is a woke leftist who's trying to run cover. I can't stand that this has devolved into hate and fear mongering about the migrants. Okay, how did you satisfy yourself that that's not a political hack, as Trump was suggesting, who's trying to run cover for a terrible thing that's happening in a city? I don't know what the truth is. And that is why I, as a debate moderator, would never have tried to settle the dispute. At a presidential debate, he made himself into Candy Crowley. That's what David Muir was doing over and over.
Megyn, I think he is the 2024 version of 2020 Chris Wallace, where he stopped Trump in his tracks and said Hunter Biden laptop story is Russian disinformation, misinformation, and it's BS, it's bullshit. It wasn't. It was true, and Chris Wallace was the final arbiter of what was true at the time or not, and he was completely wrong. I'm given that anecdotal experience I had with the Dominicans, I will tell you, there's a pretty darn good chance that there's illegal immigrants who are doing nasty things to animals, probably outside of Springfield, Ohio as well, probably in a lot of places that are just inundated with illegal migrants, because they come here, honestly, Megyn, they don't assimilate. They don't come here to assimilate and be like us. They come here and they're nice for a while, and then all of a sudden they're doing things that they did in their home country. You see it everywhere. You see it everywhere. I talked to someone today about that. Like, women are being assaulted at a higher rate, an alarmingly higher rate, by these illegal immigrants because it happens in their home country and they get away with it there. They come here in our streets and they're doing the same damn thing. They're probably killing our animals, likely eating them as well. David Muir shouldn't have fact-checked him 4 times, not once, 4 times.
No,
the way Chris Wallace, and that was a pivotal moment in 2020. The Hunter Biden laptop story could have had a lot of weight in whether you were going to vote for Joe Biden or not.
If I had been David Muir and she was cackling over there in response to this allegation that Trump was making, which again is not made up. Trump is getting this from actual residents of Springfield who have been all over the media saying this. I would have turned to her and I would have said, irrespective of the cats and the dogs and the geese, madam, Americans are being killed. We have the story of Laken Riley, among others. We have little kids who have been attacked in pedophilic rapes. We have young girls who have been murdered, a 12-year-old down at the southern border. Illegal immigrants are murdering Americans. How dare you stand there and laugh? What are you laughing about? I mean, she got a complete pass on her inappropriate behavior because they're all Team Harris. If you don't believe me, take a look at John Karl. Is he chief White House correspondent? Is that his title, Steve Krakauer? His reaction, DC, whatever, I don't know what he is. He's high up on the political food chain at NBC. His reaction to the debate. Watch.
ABC. Part of the reason is Donald Trump really was not effective in bringing the debate to her. I agree with you. I think that he looked not just angry, but also rattled. And in contrast, Harris, who again, much of the world doesn't know, Harris looked like she belonged on the stage, looked like she is somebody that could serve as president.
Yeah,
Yes,
I'm sure he wants that. He's a chief Washington correspondent.
So I watched.
That hosted.
They did an hour lead up to the debate, ABC, and I happened to watch it because I wanted to see what
watched
they
it
were.
too. It was egregious.
Oh my! How much fawning over Kamala Harris could John Karl possibly do? I mean, you mentioned Jeffrey Toobin earlier. It could have been a Jeffrey Toobin moment, practically.
I'm glad we didn't cover that part, because who wants an hour just covering one candidate where it looks like the media is prejudiced against him?
And honestly, like the way they talked about Donald Trump, and this Lindsay Davis, she actually was one of the people pushing Trump went to this city and this city has KKK members. And that's basically why, he's going, is this some sort of an endorsement, like aligning Trump with the KKK because he went to the same town that Joe Biden went to, that where a KKK supreme wizard or whatever you call him lived. Watch this. This is old Lindsay Davis. Not old. It's like 3 weeks ago.
I remember this too.
This is the same person who moderated tonight's debate. Watch.
Former President Donald Trump is expected to go campaign in Howell, Michigan tomorrow. Many people are aware that a month ago in Howell, KKK protesters marched in the streets with the white robes on and suggested that they support Donald Trump. I'm curious if you make anything about that connection and him going in particular to Howell tomorrow.
It's amazing. She got picked.
Yeah, like I said, Megyn, Disney owns ABC. ABC owns the talent. This was a trickle down from the Disney boardroom straight down, and we know how Disney feels about conservatives. We watch it. I watch it in Florida. I live in Florida. I watch it all the time. The fighting between DeSantis and Disney is nonstop. It's a wildly woke company, and Trump is the anti-woke candidate. And
Dana Walden is one of Kamala Harris's best friends.
Correct.
She's a woman who runs it, and
yeah.
she's one of her best friends.
If you think a Kamala Harris presidency won't be splashed with wokeism and a revibrance of the pride parades and the trans stuff, it's on its way, folks. It's on its way. She's going to make Joe Biden look like a normal president if she gets there.
Listen to this. Listen to this, just in case you had any doubt about ABC's intention to take out Donald Trump tonight in an ambush. Not only did they put this woman who tried to link him to the KKK in as debate moderator and chose David Muir, who's hosted, according to the Media Research Center, the world nightly news show that is the most biased out of all three of them, NBC, CBS, or ABC, by far against Trump. Almost no negative stories about Kamala Harris, almost all negative stories about Donald Trump. But tonight, who do they book on Jimmy Kimmel following the debate in their big show?
Who? I'm just curious.
George Conway, Lincoln Project Never Trumper in chief, who
he hates Donald Trump.
Earlier tonight tweeted out as follows: "This is the most brutal beatdown I've ever seen in a presidential debate. I love the Kamala, what the F is he talking about look. The way she looks at him, she shows that she's not afraid. She shows that he is a joke. Bravo. God bless our next president, Kamala Harris." That's who's on Jimmy Kimmel right now. This was an ambush. That's what he walked into tonight. And he emerged, once again, shot up a bit, but I think still strong and I think still well positioned to win this race.
There's a cottage industry that's shot up since Donald Trump became president. It's the Trump derangement people. It's like the rhinos that were being escorted out of Washington, D.C. And then there's these people, these George Conways and Lincoln Projects and the other people who aren't kind of never really were conservative, but see no lane for them to be relevant other than to attack Trump as his attachment to Kellyanne Conway, or as these former Trump comms people, Alyssa Farah on The View, and the rest of them, Stephanie Grisham. These people used to work for Trump. And I know because I used to be in D.C. and they adored him when they worked for him. They adored him. And then somehow there's a job waiting for them to bash him on the way out once they don't work for him anymore. It's a little cottage industry. Yeah, I think he's beat up. But again, Megyn, it's the fourth quarter. It's tied. Let's be honest, it's probably a tie game right now. But Patrick Mahomes, Donald Trump has the ball, and never bet against Patrick Mahomes with the ball. Tie game in the fourth quarter ever.
Speaking of Patrick Mahomes, whose wife Brittany made the comment about Trump,
and
is good friends with Taylor Swift. But now, okay, so we read Taylor's whole post earlier, so the audience knows what we're talking about. But she's endorsed Kamala Harris tonight, and amazingly said the thing that pushed her over the edge was her selection of Tim Walz because of his LGBTQ agenda. I'm going to go ahead and venture a guess. She's a know-nothing, that she knows absolutely fucking nothing about this issue. Does she know that he's bringing kids across the state line from other states whose parents don't want them to chop off their body parts, and he's having courts seize jurisdiction over them so that they can order that those be paid on the Medicaid dime in Minnesota?
So if all that is true, that's a lot to take in. What do you think about that? Parents not being involved with their kids for big decisions. And the courts are allowing this.
Oh, without the parents' consent, minor children being pulled away from their loving parents so that Tim Walz can cut off their genitals? Taylor, did you know that? Are those your little fans? Are you in favor of your little 13-year-old fans in Minnesota or around Minnesota getting pulled into Minnesota to get their breasts chopped off and to be sterilized with puberty blockers straight into cross-sex hormones? Is that what you stand for, Taylor? Thank God my daughter's not a fan of yours, but if she were, that would be it. Here's Rick Grinnell. Taylor Swift does not let people comment on her public endorsement. She turned off comments on it, Eric. LOL. Typical of today's left. They can't tolerate dissenting views. So what do you make of the Taylor Swift endorsement?
Other than the fact that I'm concerned because my beloved Kansas City Chiefs, I used to love Travis Kelce, and I can't stand him now because the stupid thing he does with her. Here's the reality.
Pfizer.
She's going to move the needle. She's going to get people to vote for Kamala Harris.
I don't think so.
As ridiculous as this sounds.
I know. Do you think Taylor Swift is going to let people or make people, because you're Taylor Swift fans, that they're going to support Kamala Harris? I'm curious. I think most of her people are like tweens. She's the only one I know that's like in her 30s. But yet, for the past 15 years, she's had tweens as her fans. But are they voters?
There are so, honestly, Megyn, there are so many dumb voters. There's so many people who just look at a celebrity or someone like, or a musician, someone especially as big as Taylor Swift, who go, if Taylor likes her, then so do I. I mean, look, Taylor Swift is probably responsible for 2 to 3% more female attendance and viewership for the NFL. Taylor Swift, one person.
That's
the
true.
NFL did a study. They were about 46% female, 54% male prior to the Taylor Swift Travis Kelce romance, and now it's probably 50-50, they say.
Wow, so she does thread the needle, but those aren't tweens, but maybe some of those people who go to these games now will also be Harris supporters. Wow.
So, like it or not, and no sane football fan is going to listen to what Taylor Swift thinks, but she moves a zeitgeist needle, so to speak, and unfortunately, young people. Oh man, it's just a scary. It's a scary. I'm in New York City. By the way, I never want to be
I
here
don't deny
again.
her power in the music industry, but I just don't think somebody's going to pull the lever for Kamala Harris because
Let's
she
hope
told them
not.
to.
Let's hope not.
I just can't. That's just my armchair opinion. I could be wrong. I've been wrong about plenty of things, but I don't believe that. Here is what Kamala Harris and her team are doing tonight with a drone. There's some video of a drone with a message in the sky. It reads, Madam Vice President.
Yeah.
Everyone's taking pictures. And then wait for it. The vice disappears. And we're just left with the Madam
So
President.
can I just comment on this whole media thing, this whole blitz, and you have to give them credit for this. They're being very creative. Almost every time I open my laptop, I got a Kamala Harris. I hate it. I got a Kamala Harris ad that place. They're putting it in very selective and smart locations. Her campaign has probably put together the best game plan for a quarterback who sucks. I'll use the football analogy one more time. She's incompetent. She doesn't know the playbook. She's not talented, but they've got the best playbook to beat the other team, and they're
We're
staying.
going to drag her into the end zone.
Right. Yes, they're figuring out that the thing that they have, and they call it the brotherly shove instead of brotherly love, where quarterback gets the ball and the whole team pushes him forward, which used to be illegal. My point is, they're finding the right places to gain ground, to gain, let's say, votes. Again, battle state. I will tell you, I believe this election's coming down to Pennsylvania. That's why Trump should have stayed on fracking for an hour, because it was Pennsylvania that was going to get hurt the most by her fracking, original OG fracking ban. that she walked back recently. But that's where I believe this election will be won or lost in Pennsylvania. And fracking matters to those folks.
Here's the final indignity of ABC. Guess who else is booked on Kimmel tonight? The bookend to their debate. Not just George Conway, Jane Fonda.
Okay. Yeah, the anti-American. Yeah.
Unbelievable. I mean, it's unbelievable what Trump walked into tonight.
Jane Fonda, hadn't seen her in years, decades. I think she's a Democrat. So wow, man. Yeah, I don't think Donald Trump should have went to ABC because he didn't like George Snapolopoulos, as he called him, or Stepilopoulos, as I like to call him. I like him. But he went to, in some people's eyes, a setup.
He should never do that again. Republicans should never do that again. There should never be another general election presidential debate or Republican primary debate on ABC News ever, period. And if any candidate agrees to that, they should have to answer to Republican voters why they intentionally tried to sink their chances by agreeing to go into such a lion's den. It's just the deck is stacked and there's only so much any human can do. Trump, of course, is claiming victory anyway. We'll see. We'll see some polls. We'll see. I've got my doubts about whether her exaltation and exuberance is going to last for very long. Eric, great to see you.
You too, Megyn. Congratulations. Great show, by the way.
Thank you very much. Oh, and thanks to all of you. I'd love to know what you think. You've heard what I think and what our guests think. Just send me an email. We have well over 1 million watching us on YouTube and plenty more on podcast.
Well, there's a lot of people. Boy, would I love to get hurt people. All right. Oh boy, we've had a long night.